Story time. I kid you not, I was plugging in my laptop and I was putting on my kettle to make some tea, getting ready for this episode, and bam, the power cut out. Woosa. So I literally called my friend and I was like, "Hi, do you have electricity at your house?" And she's like, "Yeah, do you not?" And I'm like, "Can I come over? Because I have to record." And she's like, "Yeah, sure, come over." And I was like, "Fantastic." So I literally like sped over to her house and I'm like now sitting myself up. And she was so kind and she was like, "Oh, do you need some tea or anything like that?" Because I was like, I will just grab my water bottle and then that's all I will be drinking today. Oh my goodness, like look what she brought me. She brought me like a teacup with cookies. I was like, oh my goodness. And so this is Zimbabwe like black tea. And I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to pretend my power is out every week when we record because I feel this is service, you know?
Well, an amazing friend too. She knows what you do and she's ready. Give her a big thank you from me.
Shout out to Lauren. Thank you.
When things like this happen, it's like we start hyperventilating a little bit. I don't want to cut out anything and I need to get this done.
Right? Especially when we have like guests on. We're so excited to talk to them.
And it makes me feel like the writer's support group is bigger than other writers. It's like it's your family, it's your friends, it's everybody who just comes in and says, "You can do this. Just keep going. I've got you."
100%. So she will get a free book when I publish mine.
Well, I have today hot chocolate with whipped cream on top. The temperatures dropped down back into the 30s last night, so I'm like, hot chocolate.
Wow. Yeah. I just say, we are in autumn and it's raining and it's supposed to rain this entire week. I'm like, I'm sorry. Like, are we in spring? Like, what's happening right now? Like, I feel Mother Nature does not know what is happening right now. So I'm drinking a Zimbabwe tea. It smells like a regular, like Earl Grey type of vibes. Okay, yeah. It's not bad. Alrighty. Are we ready for this episode?
We're ready.
Hey, let's go. Hello and welcome to Tea and Tales. We are so happy to have you here with us. I'm Madeline Ninell.
And I'm Sarah Sampson. We especially want to thank Margs and Manuscripts Podcast and M for following us and supporting our podcast. This week we're having an exceptional episode. It's all about the children's market and how it is looking and moving. But because Nell and I are not children's authors, we brought on Agent James McGowan to help us with this. So please welcome James.
We are super excited to have you on today's podcast.
Likewise, thank you so much for having me.
I have seen so many videos of you on YouTube because you are part of the Bookends Literary Agency and you have given such insightful knowledge about the industry, about genres and word counts and agents and all those different things, which is why we were so excited to have you on today because we are talking about children's books and children marketing. And I think you are such a good agent to be talking about them.
Well, thank you. Yeah, a lot of my client list is on the children's side, and it's a big passion of mine. So always happy to answer questions about it.
And you have worked in pretty much every department in Bookends, so you really know your stuff.
I have done every job at Bookends besides Jessica Faust's job of president. I've been an assistant, I've worked in subwrites, I've worked in accounting and social media, I've done it all. But now I am just full-time literary agent.
When you're talking about the children's market in terms of growth or contraction, shifting demands, things like that, what sort of trends are happening right now?
Yeah, April 2026 is when we're filming this. So I just want to date us for a minute because it might be different in a year. That's how the market works. But as of right now, I will not pull punches and just be honest and say the market is incredibly challenged for a number of reasons. I like to do this thing for my children's clients and send a market update once or twice a year just to let people know what's going on. What are we seeing? It's funny, we're good timing. I just sent mine out last week because we are facing, in my career, the hardest market so far. We have a number of different circumstances that are challenging things. Obviously, things like school and library funding is under attack in the US, which does affect how much money is allotted towards buying books. You have things like book bans, literacy rates are dropping for children across the board, really. And we are in a fight with kids and their TikTok and their video games and trying to get them to read instead of doing all of those things. So the market is particularly challenged across the board. And I will also say, we came out of a period where people were homeschooling in COVID. There was a real emphasis on the need for books, and we were in a very high point in the market. And as that has adjusted, it has dipped. So we're all kind of navigating a space that is a little more constricted than I think we've been used to for the past number of years, which sounds doom and gloom and grim. And anyways, it is. Yeah, I agree. But exciting things happen when it's hard to sell a book. People write more innovative projects and come up with that idea that they're kind of pushed to come up with. So I'm remaining hopeful and optimistic that exciting books are still going to be bought and sold and published. It's a little harder right now.
A challenge is never a bad thing, I think you always learn something about yourself, about other people, and I think it's a great opportunity for you to have a learning experience as well.
I think that's what publishing is facing right now. We have to be innovative. We have to reach kids with the types of books that they want to read. The kids these days, not the kids of like 5 years ago, they're different kids. The kids who were entering COVID are different than the kids who are becoming literate in post-COVID world, right? Like everything is just different. So the market has to figure out ways to market to librarians and teachers and parents of those children. We have to come up with what topics they want to read about, what kind of format, like graphic novels are on a rise, obviously, like we have to meet that moment. So yeah, it's forcing the industry to be just as innovative as the authors.
Well, speaking of graphic novels, do you feel that graphic novels continue to dominate middle grade, or are you seeing like a market change?
Yeah, I think definitely. It's helpful for children, especially children that might struggle with reading, to follow a story, but it's also really visually stimulating and exciting to watch. Especially kids, again, they're on their phones, they're scrolling. So that visual component really does help. It bridges readers from picture books and chapter books to a longer format of a story. Publishers are still really enthusiastic about them. We have not seen the number of sales dip graphic novels the way we have for things like middle grade prose. So yeah, I definitely see that area of the market still going strong. Obviously, when we publish heavily into a space, we have to find new ways to do it, right? Like the vampire craze, there came a point where it was like, don't send me a vampire ever. So you have to find exciting stories to tell, push the boundaries of the format, things like that. But yeah, no, I still absolutely see graphic novels as a viable format and age range too.
One of the interesting things about the children's market that I feel makes it more difficult, and correct me if I'm wrong, is the fact that there's so much variety in it. It goes from everything from board books for babies to picture books to children's young books to middle grade to YA. In each of those areas, which one feels like it's the most competitive right now?
They're all competitive, and I know that that's kind of a non-answer. I would say they all are facing a different challenge. Obviously, middle grade and YA, there's the variance of genre, right? Like there's fantasy, mystery, horror, romance, all of these different genres that an author can play in. I don't do as much work in those age ranges as I do in picture books, so part of me is probably biased to say picture books feels the most challenged right now, but picture books feels the most challenged right now. Last year was middle grade. Middle grade lost a significant chunk of support from Barnes & Noble, and it's always been a little hard to break into middle grade, so I think that is still there, but picture books is new and like directly affecting me, so I'm gonna vote picture books right now. Yeah, I mean, every author in every age range is gonna face the difficulty of a saturated market, of a competitive market, of rising production costs, lowering literacy rates. We're all facing the same thing.
I mean, that's fair. You can be biased to what you focus on the most.
Because I'm experiencing it on a daily basis. So for my clients, the picture book market's really hard. But sure, a middle grade agent would probably say, nope, middle grade is way harder right now. And maybe in some respects it is because the works are longer than a picture book text. But the picture book market, we have seen the real need for a different type of storytelling, bigger hooks, bigger characters, humor, commercial storytelling, and we are seeing a big pinch right now.
I know that middle grade and YA are not your particular focuses, but you did mention how when you get into those areas, you now start introducing more genres and different types of genres. Is there one that's on the rise in those areas more than others, or are they all just struggling?
Yeah, I think a lot of people have been really looking for the horror, the mystery, thriller, like that kind of stuff has been working really well. Romantasy, obviously, again, as of April 2026, romantasy is huge across every age range. So YA and new adult are really loving writing romantasy in general. Some publishers have different experiences, right? Like there was just a report from Bologna Book Fair where Simon and Schuster was saying their contemporary romances and rom-coms are doing really well. But another publisher in that same article did not feel that way. So it's just going to be a matter of list and stuff like that. But romantasy, I would say, is in its biggest surge right now for YA. Middle grade is challenged again across the board, but I'm hearing from a lot of folks the wish for horror.
But you know what, you say that romantasy is like on a high right now, and then the day that I decide to start writing romantasy, people are going to be like, oh no, wait, wow, it's oversaturated. Sorry, nay, sorry. This is all your fault. I trusted you.
I always make that joke about my career too. Like the minute I step my foot into a genre, it's like, all right, we're on to the next thing, and we move on.
Right? And it just kind of goes to show you because a lot we say constantly in this industry that yes, there are trends, and yes, you know, at a certain stage and certain point, people are looking for certain stuff. But you as the writer should write what you want to write and write the stories you want to write. Because at the end of the day, those are going to be the ones that sell. Because as you say, like the novel that I wrote this year, I might only get an agent for 4 years from now. And then that might not even be the thing that everybody's looking for.
And it sounds a little trite to say, but the book that you want to write right now is going to be the better book. Like the thing you are excited about and the thing that you are putting your energy into is going to be the better book than feeling forced to write for the trend. If you want to write horror, don't force yourself to write romantasy. Like sometimes it's like we can tell that you did that. And the book that you really are lit up about, the idea, the concept, the character, whatever, comes through in the writing.
100%. And can I also just say, so I'm a contemporary romance writer, and when I write, I'm like, yeah, I know my stuff, I know what's happening and what's the rules and all those things. And then all of a sudden, this idea of like a paranormal romance came into my mind, and I was just like, whoa, 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 whoa. I was just like, I don't even read paranormal. I was like, what is happening here right now? But it's really just speaking to me. It forced me to actually do the research about that genre because the story just wouldn't leave me alone. But I'm actually enjoying writing it.
And a lot of authors get that, like, I should stay in my lane. I tell my clients all the time, I don't believe in lanes. Just write the damn book. Write whatever you want to write. Like, who cares? If you don't, I don't know paranormal. So just write it anyway. Figure it out. You can revise it, you can edit it. Even if you just gotta dump it out of your brain, just do it. Who cares? There's no rules.
Exactly. And I feel like understanding where the trends are now, what it really does is first look at what you have ready and say, does it fit? Let's throw that out there. But also for the innovators to look at, well, what is being missed in the market that I can start trying to get in there.
And that's how it goes, right? Like that's how like something does really well and then all the sheep go the same way. Like that's what starts a trend. Sometimes there's one thing that like a book that does something just a little bit differently. A little bit. When The Wedding People came out, I don't know if either of you know The Wedding People. I think it's Alison Elspach, I think is her name. But it came out and it was like this irreverent dramedy kind of book. And then not that it did something super different, but it spoke to a moment, and then it was one of those books that within like 6 months of it being released, everybody was telling me that they wanted a version of The Wedding People for their list. It's like Death by a Thousand Cuts. The market changes not all at once, but like one book comes out and then we slowly trickle and we have more and this person reads and that person. That's how it works. Just to use the vampire example again, Twilight came out and everyone was like, vampires, give me 1,000,000 of them. That's how it goes.
Yeah. So right now in today's market, what areas feel really oversaturated, and in what areas on the children's side and themes and topics, what sort of things are they actively wanting?
So I'll speak to picture books first. The humor and that big bold character, like the fancy Nancy's, the like the bad seed, the good egg, like that kind of character that you can put on the center of a cover and everyone's like, oh, what is that? That works really well. Seasonal and holiday tie-ins are huge because it helps to have a reason to give a librarian, a teacher, or a parent a book, right? Like Halloween is coming. These are the books you can read to your kid in October. So that's super helpful. And humor. The humor, I mean, if you have kids in your life, when you are reading a picture book, they are going to be more engaged with the funny, the laugh out loud, the absurdist, the cuckoo crazy stuff. Like they're gonna really love that. So that's where I'm seeing the picture book market go. In the middle grade, it's always going to be about voice. The voice is very important in middle grade. We want to make sure we're meeting children where they are and they can kind of see right through that super didactic or try hard voice. So voice is always going to be important. I'm trying to coach clients towards that cinematic feel, like that kind of book where you are immediately drawn in. You can see it unfold in your mind. Because again, we're going up against a lot of other forms of media, a lot of noise, and we want the kids to open a book and want to keep reading that book. So that kind of cinematic feel across genre. I would say the same for YA too.
Speaking of libraries and children and parents, when libraries and schools acquire books, is there a certain pattern that publishers are looking for? And then that kind of makes them decide which books they want to acquire when you pitch your clients to them?
That's a really good question. I mean, there's always that goal for curriculum tie-in, right? Like we want to make sure that there's a ability for schools and libraries to tie the book into a curriculum somehow. Not every book does have that. Like some fiction doesn't necessarily have that. It's just storytelling. It's really an independent decision on the schools and library districts. They know what their readers are looking for, their students are looking for. So there's no like one size fits all to that. But there are things like, especially on the nonfiction side or the very informational fiction side, yeah, there are things that we can keep an eye out of, like how can we tie this into curriculum? What would this go to? Like, is there a history curriculum? Is there a science curriculum that these books can apply themselves to really well? On the library side, I think it's a little bit more about circ numbers for genre and things like that and what their readers are checking out, because they want to have a library of books that their readers are going to come in and check out. So case by case, district by district basis, it's always a goal of ours on the children's side to make sure that we have some sort of in and we can pitch this to a librarian or a school district and make sure that their readers will buy it, because a good bulk of our sales will come from those institutional markets.
In our country, the grade that you are in every year, they have like a mandatory book that you read. So, for example, when I was in matric, which is a senior for you, I read How to Kill a Mockingbird, which meant that the entire country of South Africa, if you were matric that year, you had to go by To Kill a Mockingbird.
Oh, wow.
And so, of course, we had like, yeah. And so every year, a majority of times it's the same things. We did Shakespeare for a long time, and it kind of depending on if you take English as a first language or a second language, that means like what books you're going to get. But I don't know how it works in the United States, because I know you have like federal and then you have like county and you have all these different things. So is there like a mandatory book that kids at a certain age have to read, or?
No, we don't have anything nationalized. I can't speak to all 50 of the states. I don't know if there's like a statewide, but I know people in Jersey when we were growing up, New Jersey, that did not read the same books that I read in New York. So on many levels, it could be district again, by school district, by like we have the New York City public school system. A lot of that was fairly standardized, but there's even some nuances with, so, you know, someone might read a different Shakespeare play. I didn't actually read How to Kill a Mockingbird in school. I read that in college. But there are plenty of people that have read How to Kill a Mockingbird in high school. So it does depend on school district in a lot of ways. And then I think there's some discretion for individual schools, but there's no standardized, nationalized selection ever. I don't think in anything in the United States. There's like nothing that's standard across all 50 states. So no, but yes, that would move like millions of copies if so. I'm sure it does so for you.
I'm the same as you. I never read To Kill a Mockingbird in high school either.
Right.
I read The Grapes of Wrath.
I did not read that, actually.
Totally different. Compared to a few years ago, can we see a trend that we can kind of now predict the next few years ahead? And what are those changes and shifts that we're seeing?
I think that there is a level of hubris to trying to predict the trends. And I don't know that it ever fully works out. I'm hearing from a lot of folks on the adult side, and I feel like that might trickle into YA, about dystopian again. But I would be honest and say, I don't think I can forecast something. I think that for the next couple of years, because the books we're buying now, especially on the younger side of children's books, will be out in 2 years. We're going to see a lot of that humor, commercial, big characters. We're going to see a lot of that because that's what editors are looking for. That's what we're seeing deal announcements come out for. Middle grade and YA, I think we're going to probably see more of that romantasy, that horror, that like very genre focused storytelling. But in terms of a specific trend, I would be wrong to predict one, I think, at this point. I think we're all very enmeshed in the romantasy, especially for YA and adult. I kind of can't see the forest for the trees yet.
I think that's a really, really insightful way to answer that, because as an author, I hear a lot people telling me, go do your research to figure out the trends and the predictions. But half the time, I don't know where to even go to look.
Right.
Since it is so hard to predict, where would you suggest authors go to start learning how to read those trends and get this information?
Publishers Weekly does a really great, I think it's bi-weekly, twice a week, Bi-weekly as in every 2 weeks. I hate that has two meanings. Twice a week, Tuesday and Thursday. It really drives me nuts that it has two meanings. It's like one of my pet peeves. Every Tuesday and Thursday, Publishers Weekly puts out a children's bookshelf newsletter. I think it's one of the best resources that a children's author could have. Because it's free. It's free 99. Publishers Weekly, will include a bunch of deal announcements that have been submitted to Publishers Weekly from agents and editors. It will also have some insights about the market. It's a really great resource. And it's free. You can sign up. You'll get it in your inbox Tuesday and Thursday around 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern, and there's a ton in there. So you can kind of see what's being bought relatively recently. Obviously, sometimes deal announcements might take 6 to 9 months, depending on how long it takes to find an illustrator or something. But it's the most up to the minute you're going to get without knowing every publisher's daily acquisitions. And then just kind of keeping an eye on the bestseller lists, keeping an eye, New York Times bestseller list here is especially indicative of the market. So just kind of looking at what is picking up, what are kids reading, what are people buying. That would be the best way to do it. And then reading those. That is also super helpful. But the one thing I will say, just to kind of go back to our last question really quickly, the genre blending is huge. Everybody wants genre blending, mix a little bit of the mystery with the romance or the sci-fi with the mystery. That's another reason why I find it especially difficult to predict anything, because, I don't know, would I have predicted somebody would take fantasy and romance, smash them together, and it would become an international craze? No, because fantasy always had a little bit of romance, and I just would have thought, we're going to keep going. So anything can happen, really. I just read a book on the adult side called This Story Might Save Your Life. And it was a really fun blend of romance and thriller. And I think we're just going to keep seeing. There's another book, again on the adult side, How to Kill a Guy in 10 Dates. Slasher, romance, that you wouldn't expect it, right? And people are calling it horror romance. Those sort of things are just going to happen. And that's what I meant earlier about innovation, especially when the market is getting tough. It's just smashing of things and trying something new out that is going to spark some trend somewhere for someone.
Okay, so you've brought something else to my mind that I've been seeing a lot of querying agents asking, because you're talking specifically about genre blend, but we also are seeing crossover YA to adult books.
Yeah.
Where there are agents who are I want a crossover. And so people are do I say that in my query letter if I feel like mine's a crossover? Do I have to pick one or the other when I'm querying? How do I do that?
I would say it in the query letter. Okay, so here's a little soapbox moment for me. Maybe I shouldn't hard launch this on a public podcast. But a big theory of mine is that the crossover is doing really well right now because teenagers especially are on the same internet that adults are. So they're picking up the books that are going viral on Book Talk. They're picking up Colleen Hoover and Sarah J. Maas and all of these huge Book Talk books, and they're reading them. So the YA market is also kind of adjusting and meeting that moment too. And the adult market is also meeting the younger side. So there's just kind of blurring of lines. And so that's my take on the crossover, and that's why it's working so well right now, is that we're all on the same internet. Even though there's, obviously differences to algorithm, people of all ages from 17 to 75 are all on the same internet and picking up the same recommended books. So I think that's a big reason why crossover is having a bit of a moment right now. But I would just say it. If you think your book has the potential to cross over, even if an agent doesn't necessarily agree, that can be workshopped out of the pitch later. If you think that, I would add it and see where people land.
Okay. Speaking of Sarah J. Maas, because I was just thinking she wrote a series.
Yeah.
What role does series potential play in acquisition decisions across different age categories?
Yeah, okay, this is a great question. So obviously there are some genres that lend themselves really well to series. Fantasy does. There's always going to be that necessity of it for genre in the older markets. I will say with the market being challenged, there is going to be a sense of publishers being risk averse. So they might make a more conservative approach. They might say 2 books for a duology, or, we'll acquire 2 now and we can revisit later down the line. Nobody's coming out of the gate swinging for a 7-book deal. I will say that pretty definitively. I'm finding 3 can even be difficult right now, but it is still being done. So obviously it's always going to be part of certain genres on the older side of the spectrum. On the picture book side, I am finding more of an aversion to the series publishing unless the books are doing really well or they have that undeniable hook. A lot of books used to go in 2-3 book deals for a series, and now we're starting with 1. A lot of publishers have peeled back to start with 1. Or, it's kind of like an untitled book too, and we'll figure out, do we want to do a second book or do we want to go in a different direction? Because we want to make sure that if we're going to keep going with a lot of picture books, they're not direct series, right? They're not like continuation of story. They're another episode of those characters or that world or that hook. So we want to be mindful of the fact that if the first one didn't work, the second one might not necessarily pick up. And if we can pivot, it would make sense and behoove the author to pivot. I would say on the younger side, we're very conservatively looking towards series. It would need to make sense. With that said, there are books like The Good Egg, The Bad Seed. They are part of a larger collection of books, but you can hand one to any reader and they don't have to pick up the other 10 at this point. So those sort of complementary kind of universes that are being built out of, and you didn't see my they were all too far out to the side. Those little universes that are being built in picture books, if they work, they can be really successful.
That makes me wonder, because when I was a kid in the 90s, it felt like every book that was put out was in a series.
Right, the Babysitter's Club, the Hardy Boys, like all of those books that I was picking up as a kid, they were number 72, Goosebumps, all of them. Yes, we are not necessarily experiencing that type of publishing right now. There are still some of those long-running series, obviously. I would be hard-pressed to name one that has started maybe in the last 5-ish years, with the exception of like Bad Guys. Bad Guys is doing very well. Graphic novel series for like low middle grade, maybe upper middle grade if, kids are still reading in that level. But yeah, Bad Guys I think it might be on like 12 or 14 or something like that. And it's one long continuation of story.
Is there maybe an industry trend or a buyer trend that might be driving that? Are there too many options so they're less likely to stay with one and read more broadly?
I think it's probably attention spans for a lot of children. And also the children's market is pretty transient, right? Like the kids are growing up and going on to the next age range or becoming adults and not necessarily reading those books. So I think that probably plays a huge factor into it. And then we need that success for there to be like renewed buyership. And Bad Guys has reached that level of success. Things like Dav Pilkey, right? Like the Captain Underpants, the Dog Man. They have reached that blockbuster level of success that when that next generation of kids is ready to read the books, they're grabbing those first. Dork Diaries, like those kinds of books. They do well with series publishing because there becomes a recognition amongst children of all ages for them.
I've been curious though, because like my sister's kid, she loves Bluey. And then all of a sudden, everybody brings out like Bluey books. And so then I'm like, oh, okay, like interesting. Or at some point in time, like everybody loved Frozen. And then all of a sudden these Frozen like books came out. And so I'm always curious because technically it's not a series. Like how can you kind of categorize those type of books right now?
So a whole subsect of publishing, children's publishing in particular, that's IP and licensing publishing. So there are a lot of publishers will work with these brands like Bluey, like Frozen. Disney has a whole arm of publishing where they will commission these stories to be told and license them to other publishers. Random House does a lot of them. Scholastic does a lot of them. So these IP franchises will expand their brand by finding writers to write those books, partnering with the publisher to publish them. Scholastic, like I said, does a ton of them. HarperCollins has a whole licensing public imprint. There's a ton of these imprints across the big five. And so when something is super successful, like Bluey has been, I believe it's Penguin Random House, an imprint. Don't quote me, I don't know which one, but Penguin Random House does a lot of the Bluey stuff. And it is an entire publishing program. And they will hire writers. It's usually work for hire. And they don't retain any rights. You usually don't get royalties. And you are writing these books for a flat fee basis and publishing into a franchise for these kids to get books that have their favorite character on them. So you're kind of meeting the prompt and the edict of the brand. And it can be super lucrative. It can be super lucrative for the authors who are open to that sort of work.
That's really interesting. And so does the publisher hire those people directly? Are they people they usually work with? I've never heard of this brand of writing before.
Yeah, sometimes it's people they've worked with before. Sometimes they'll reach out to us and be like, do you have someone? I'm looking for someone who can write this sort of book. I have a client who writes a lot with Disney, and she's done Little Mermaid, Cinderella, a whole bunch of works. Here's a couple. These are like 2 books in one, Snow White. And we have the Little Mermaid. And I have a Cinderella project here. This is Brittany Mazik. So she does a lot with Disney. Yeah, it's incredible. super fun. And, like, especially for the authors who, a lot of my clients who have kids that are consuming this media, they're like, I know that so well. I have watched 3,000 episodes of Bluey, and I've watched every episode 100 times. So I can write that book. And so sometimes it just works out. Like, if somebody knows an IP, they can meet that prompt for the publisher.
So you could get it if you have an agent who's connected, or you're a well-known author that they're going to reach out to.
Exactly.
Somehow.
Yeah, there are authors who have, put out there how big of a fan they are of, like, Star Wars, and then they get offered to write a Star Wars novelization. Stranger Things has done it. You can find Stranger Things books. They partner with a publisher. We find an author. Sometimes they're big name authors. Sometimes they're people who just have an understanding of the IP.
This makes me wonder, as we're talking about getting yourself out there. If you have an agent, it helps. If you have well-known books, it helps. But what about platforms, social media presence, that sort of thing, for especially our self-published authors who might be thinking right now, ooh, that sounds really cool. How do I do that? How important is that author platform and social media presence in the children's space?
So here's what I say to everybody, because this question comes up all the time. Is it required? Really, by no stretch of the imagination. Is it helpful? Every single time. No matter what you have, having something, the more you have, is it going to be helpful? Yeah, sure. It's not going to hurt. Never going to hurt. I have clients that aren't on social media at all. When your book comes out, it can hurt. It's helpful to have something out there. To get yourself in the door, do you have to be online? Not necessarily. I think you should. I think we have reached that flexion point in time where it's like, there's really no reason why you wouldn't, unless you have significant privacy concerns. But I think it's a part of the business now. So if you want to become an author, which is starting your own small business, you should. You should be prepared to market yourself.
Okay. This is just a side note, but the novels that your client did, the Disney ones, was she also an illustrator, or what, did she just do the writing?
Oh, so my client Brittany just did the writing for these, but I mean, the same works on the other side. They might find an illustrator who will be able to meet that prompt. Sometimes they might have like staff artists or artists who work on the IP that can do the art for them. It really depends.
Okay, cool. No, that was just like a I wanted to know question. So how do advances in print runs trend in this climate?
When things get difficult, those things tend to get more conservative. I think that's just the most succinct and easiest way to answer it. So we are in a period where they might be a little more conservative. With that said, we still see books go for 6 and 7 figures across genres. Not in picture books. You won't see 7 figures in picture book. But, right now, April 2026, things are probably more conservative than they might have been in a boom for any particular market. But not to say that those deals don't happen still. Kind of a non-answer, but the answer I've got.
It all goes back to those trends. Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's hot, they're going to want to pay you more to get you on the hook. And if it's
Exactly.
oversaturated, it's going to...
Exactly. The genre does help. We might see a bigger advance for a romantasy than you would for like a picture book. Yeah, of course, obviously.
That's interesting. Thank you so much for joining us today. We have thoroughly enjoyed having you speaking with us. Is there any last things you'd like to say? Any advice for new authors, or maybe just struggling authors who've been out there for a long time?
Yes, I will say markets are cyclical. So we will see an upswing eventually, and I'm really looking forward to that. And also, it is not easy ever. So if it feels like it's particularly not easy now, it's not, but it's not easy ever. So I think if you want to do it, you just got to do it. Read, write, put your work out there, and I will keep my fingers crossed that you have success with it. But my job relies on you doing your job. So please do your job.
And if you would like to hear more from James McGowan or look into him, you can go to Instagram at jmcgowanbks,
Right.
or to his website at jmcgowanbooks.com, or you can find him at bookendsliterary.com. All those links will be in the show notes.
Thank you very much. I very cleverly dropped the O from books because I needed it to be a little shorter.
I love it. It's clever.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. This was so fun.
We like to keep things short here on Tea and Tales. Get your fingers back on the keyboard and your pens back on paper.
And if you love what we are doing here, if you love the topics that we are discussing, and especially the guests that we have on, then go follow us on Instagram, Threads, and Facebook at Tea Tales Podcast, and on Twitter /X and TikTok at Podcast Tea Tales. And go subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Tea Tales Podcast. And if you want to help us with the algorithm, go to that purple icon on your device and go to Spotify and share and like and tell us what your favorite children's book is or what you would like to see in the market. And then you can help us go up at some moment.
Next week, join us again for our author spotlight with Leocadia George. Happy writing.
Bye.